were to ask him, Tord would always tell you he was fine. It didn't matter if he was crying or curled up on the floor in pain. I'm fine, he'd say. Don't worry about me. Matt would always frown, but never pushed it. He knew Tord just needed some time, and he'd be fine eventually. It wasn't like the silver-eyed boy would ever accept his help anyways. Matt was starting to get tired of hearing that. Ed tried. Believe him, he tried to help, but it did nothing. I'm fine. Don't worry. It's nothing. I'll get over it. It doesn't hurt that bad. Just leave me alone. Tord refused to let him help, throwing out every excuse even if they both knew he was lying. What more was he to do without Tord lashing out? Tom, despite hating Tord's guts, always pushed him the hardest. No, you're not. We both know you're not fine, Tom would growl, glaring at the crying Norski. He never did say what was wrong, but he would break down, gripping Tom like a lifeline as he sobbed. Maybe he was in those moments. Tord, being the way he was, would refuse to acknowledge it and pretended that it never happened. To say they were worried about him was an understatement. He shut himself off in his room again, Matt sighed as he stood by the couch. Ed and Tom showed a look of concern. Despite Tord clearly trying to shy away from them, he rarely locked himself away. The last time he'd done that, Tom banged on Tord's door angrily. Tord, I swear to fuck, he growled. This was the third time this month he'd locked himself in his room, and Ed was going to have a fucking panic attack. I'm fine. Please go away, Tord said from behind the door. Tom was getting sick of hearing that bullshit lie. Move back, he said to his friends, remembering a tip from a dumb video Tord showed him. If you're trying to kick down a door, don't use your shoulder. Kick with your foot near the handle. The door burst open, banging against the wall hard enough to put a hole in it. That wasn't what made Tom freeze, though. Sitting in a pool of his own blood was Tord, a razor in one hand and a row of cuts on his wrists. His bluish-gray eyes were wet with tears as he stared up at them in shock. Tord, what are you doing? Ed screamed as he rushed over to his bleeding friend. Tears streamed down the Norwegian's face as he tried to hide his arms. Tord! I'm sorry, he wailed. I'm sorry. You weren't supposed to see. No one was. Matt and Tom moved closer, Tom rubbing Tord's back. Come on. We need to treat these, Ed stammered. And don't you dare say you're fine. You're fucking cutting your... Tord's refusal was stopped before it even started. Matt carefully took the blade from his hand, cringing at the glint of cherry-red blood. Tord bit his lip hard enough to drop blood. Stop that! Tom barked. Sighing, Tord rose to shaking legs and leaned against Matt for support. Blood loss. They brought him to the bathroom. The razor was disposed of quickly. Ed gently dabbed a cotton ball with antiseptic over the fresh wounds. Tord was hugging Matt's torso, probably using him to muffle his whimpers. Ed, Matt, and Tom all shared a look at each other in worry. I swear to all the Smurfnoffs in this house, Tom grumbled, jumping over the couch and darting over to Tord's door. Ed, Matt, only a few paces behind. Tord! He yelled, banging on the door. There was no response. He tried the door. Unlocked. All the air left his lungs, and Tom was having a hard time breathing. Tord stood in the center of the room with a gun pointed right to his temple. Tears dripped down his face. Tord! They all screamed, racing to stop the meal. Tom snatched the gun from Tord's hand. Classic. Stupid. Tord, he breathed, tapping the gun to his own head before tossing it. Tord's wide silver eyes leaked as he shook. What the fuck? What has gotten into you, damn it? You really fucking think shooting yourself is the only option? You wouldn't understand, Tord hiccuped, wrapping his arms around himself and sniffling. Because you never talk to us. We are here for you, but we can't help you if you won't let us, Tom yelled as hot tears burned down his face. Please, Tord, we're here for you. You're like family to us. Talk to us, Ed cried, reaching to touch him, but he flinched away. Tord, please, Matt croaked, looking around frantically. Tord's breathing began to quicken. I'm just a fuck-up. All I do is hurt people, he choked out, brokenly. For the first time in over 20 years, he was talking about his feelings. I'm not worth it. You shouldn't have to burden my problems. It's not a burden, Tom screamed. You are not a burden. Will you stop for one fucking second and think? If we didn't want to deal with your problems, why would we keep asking? Tord didn't respond, still trying to breathe. His eyes scanned each and every one of their faces, seeing the fear and worrying in his eyes, and he knew it wasn't fake. That wasn't pity. I'm sorry. I'm so sorry, Tord sobbed, breaking down into a new set of hysterics. They pulled him into a hug as they all sank to the floor. Tom held him tightly as tears of his own escaped his eyes. We love you, Tord. Please let us help, Ed whined, voice barely above a whisper. His fingers combed through messy caramel hair. Drained, the four of them passed out. They had enough emotional strain for one day. And maybe they'd get Tord the help he needed. That was, of course, when he was ready. You can't help someone who doesn't want to be helped. And maybe, in time, Tord would want to be helped.